We would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that we record this podcast on and pay respects to the elders past, present, and emerging.
We must always remember that under the concrete and asphalt that this land is, was, and always will be Aboriginal land.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Rumbi.
Welcome to It's Layered,
The studio special edition. We are still geeking over this, by the way.
Yep, we are.
Acting like we ain't never seen nice things ever.
Well, not this type of nice.
Not like this.
We're a long call from our little laptop, Rumbi.
Yeah. Anytime you want to come roll with me. Oh, that was one call, not a long call. Never mind. Okay, keep it moving.
Rumbi still singing. So obviously on this podcast we love to go into layers, hence It's Layered.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a more layered topic than privilege in all its aspects.
Yeah.
And I think the rise of like everything that happened with Black Lives Matter and social movements and COVID in itself, because there was a lot of privilege attached to that, a pandemic. What is privilege to you?
Well, immediately when you talk about privilege, I think of the, what's it called when you have, Hailey Bieber, what would you call it?
Oh, white passing.
No.
White. What's hers? Nepotism.
Nepotism, I think of, but it's...
No, she's not white passing, sorry.
Yeah,
Hailey Bieber is definitely white.
I don't know what you're...
I think it was Halsey.
No idea.
Yeah, anyway.
But like nepotism, but like she has a privilege to be who she is because she grew up in a successful family. Therefore, she has access to certain brands and people. So that's a form of privilege. But I would define privilege as having an advantage over others, often in a way that you, who is privileged, is not aware of or is not cognizant of because it's natural, it comes naturally, or you're born into it, or it seems natural. Yeah. Unless you are told otherwise or make sure you educate yourself otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's almost like an exposure thing, right?
Yes.
You think, oh, this is my normal.
Yes.
Not realizing your normal is steps above someone else's.
Yes.
And also how their world operates without that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Without that, whatever the privilege would be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what makes the notion of privilege tricky to chat about?
I think because for the longest time, it's been tied to wealth. So people always thought, I'm privileged. And the word privilege meant luxury, wealth, money. And then I think all these social movements made it like, no, back to every day.
Yes.
What is privilege? And I think people don't want to seem like they are in favor. You know, it's easy to play the victim.
Yes.
It's easy to play the one who's being wrong done. Like, you're like, oh my God, like poor little me. Yeah. But it's harder to confidently operate in that. Oh yeah, I got privilege. Yeah. And then what? So I think people always want to be like, no, I don't.
I'm struggling.
Yeah, I'm struggling too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just the same as you.
Yes.
They don't want to be like, no, actually, in that space.
And I think also because the world loves the underdog story.
Yeah. 100%.
The victor over struggle. 100%. The overcoming. We love that storyline. It's really hard to buy into like, oh, I was born with privilege and I have even more privilege. And I'm going to have, my great-grandchildren will be privileged for the rest. Do you understand?
Yeah,
so it's very uncomfortable. As people, we don't want to have uncomfortable conversations. No. So that's what makes it really complex.
Yeah. And I think it's also just like being comfortable with being privileged is a hard space to like accept.
Yes.
Like if everyone's like, oh, even you in becoming over, we had to apply for a visa.
Yes.
And Tom wouldn't have had to.
Yes.
And even just that conversation of he's seeing you run around, get all the papers together. And he's just like, I'm literally just going to rock up at the Emirates thing and go, I'm here in Australia and done deal. You're a tourist. Why would you need to? And I think it's that like uncomfortable nature of it, of like, I see you struggling and I don't have to. And I had no say in us being different.
Yes.
Because it's like, well, what did Tom do to
have the
what
privilege?
Did he himself do to be Czech and Australia and Europe have a good relationship? You can just rock up. What did you do to be Zimbabwean and have to apply for a visa, and coming to Australia is a bigger ask.
Yeah.
We did nothing. We just existed. Insane. And then why are we so different?
That's insane. It's such a great
uncomfortable,
example.
Right?
It's a great example. Can I ask though, when did you realize you had some privilege?
Take me back.
Yeah. Because, obviously, we've talked a lot on this podcast about our lack of privilege in a lot of areas, whether it was colonialism, whether it was, patriarchy, whatever. But the truth is we are aware that we do have privilege. But do you remember the first time you were aware
It probably has to tie it back to our classism episode, where it's like North versus South.
Yes.
When you go to a school with other white people in it. When you have a friend, if you yourself don't have a swimming pool, they have a swimming pool in their backyard.
Yeah.
It's those within family setups when you realize. But I don't think we could articulate what it was.
For me, it was when we went to Kumusha.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
We were young, and you'd see people running after the car.
Yeah.
And then being like, you've never seen a car. And then you get there and everyone's excited to have you there, and how our parents would have to take a lot of gifts and things for them, and like food, and you have all these visitors.
And even within the food, electricity, right? Yes. So your parents wouldn't be buying fresh milk. Yes. It would be long life milk.
Yes.
Like, oh my God. It's
and how they would look at you like, oh, your dress or your shoes, or, or then where I think our parents talk about an example where my brother asked when he was really young, and we go Kumusha. Kumusha is like rural areas, village, where my dad came from or comes from. And he was like, when are we watching TV? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Yes. And they all just look at you like this little
there ain't no TV, like, yeah.
Or like, where's the bed? When we sleep on the floor, Kumusha. And then they're like,
wow.
Ain't no bed here, sweetie.
You've nailed it. Because that is...
Yeah.
And we think it's an experience.
Yeah. We're like, we used to get excited. Bathing in a dish. Yeah. Okay, we can run around barefoot. Yeah, going to try and fetch water. What? Wow. All that.
And then that's someone's daily life.
Yes.
Your little holiday, which is what, like with tourism as well, right? When people like go to these countries and set up like schools or whatever, and people are like, oh, you're tourist shopping for like poverty shopping.
Yes.
Making it seem like whereas that's someone's everyday life.
Exactly.
But in a way, we were doing that in our own space.
Exactly.
Because for a week, it's fun to go bath in the river. But hey, come week 2, aye.
Yeah.
Me, I want my hot shower.
Exactly. It's crazy, right?
Ish, I never thought of it that way.
And then automatically with that privilege, it's people see you as more, people want to be closer to you because there's that, I guess we're talking about financial privilege compared to our families, like extended families. So people want to be closer to people who have more access. So people are friendlier to you or nicer to you. Or sometimes it was the reverse. They're meaner to you because they, you have that privilege over them,
Like comfort yourself with your bed.
Yes.
Like just, exactly. You're fine. We can attack you because...
And laugh at you.
Have these
and you
things.
have to take it, right?
Yeah.
Because,
with grace.
Yes.
I mean, if we even list the different types of privilege and the layers around them... We're going to go there because that's what we do on this podcast. Even like the first one that comes to mind is obviously white privilege.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
That's a very, very layered topic. I think it's in everything, right? Yeah. Because it's quite interesting. I have this conversation with my husband and we talk about, I'll ask him sometimes like, would you ever want to be black? Like me, like a black woman, like me.
Oh, black woman.
And he's like,
not black woman, child. That's like another step.
Exactly. He's like, no. I think now because he's seen what we go through and he is aware that he's operated with that privilege. And I think it's in everything, right? Like, for example, the other day I was talking about how we dress. And I was like, Black people, we're very conscious of how we look. You don't want to look like you're homeless because if you look homeless, people are afraid of you. They think you're going to rob them, attack them or something like that. Whereas our white counterparts can just move around looking like a hobos and it's fine. Yeah. And it's like, that's a form of white privilege, right?
Yeah. I mean, even in the workspaces, like we talked about this other day, if I rock up to a meeting just looking like jeans and a tee, and this is like a corporate meeting, it's like anyone else is like, oh yeah, it's casual Friday. For me, it's like, okay, what's wrong? Like, or they undermine my intelligence because I must look like, so I have to always look good.
Yes.
Put together. You know, even the days of people laughing, you know, working from home, you can wear sweats.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think I've mentioned before on the podcast about living in the Czech Republic, how as soon as you step out the door, I'm very conscious of who I am and my skin. Yeah. And being aware of not being threatening, being polite, smiling, but also in the background, you're not too, you know. So things like that, where you have to think about how you are perceived constantly is a privilege, is what's the opposite of privilege? It's a handicap that I have compared to someone else. Yeah. So, but you can go in. What about, and this is a good one, white passing?
Oof. Not that I'm white passing, so I'm just going to talk as if. Yeah. But isn't that handy? Because you can go both sides.
Yes.
You know, you're invited to the cookout, but you also can be, people don't even realize.
Yes.
And, you know, in Australia, I mean, similar to African-American experience, we've got First Nations people, and some of them do look like are white passing.
Yeah.
And there is privilege. People are like, oh, you're First Nation. Like, people don't even like, and there's a take back like, oh.
Yeah.
And it's like, why does it make a difference? But it does, right? It does. That's why you're acknowledging.
In South Africa and, you know, in apartheid, they used to, and I think also in America during slavery, they used to use the pencil.
Yes. Or like a brown paper bag.
How, if the pencil fell through your hair, you got more privilege.
Yeah.
When you say it sounds so stupid. Like,
or brown paper bag comparing you, how light you are compared or dark you are compared.
Yeah.
There is privilege with it because obviously, you can toe the line. And like, I'll have to say, even Jerome now, being a biracial child, so far he looks white passing sometimes.
Yes.
His hair is coming through though. Thank God for the afro. His hair is giving him away.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, but like sometimes I see him in daycare, when I see him around other kids, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And even when I pick him up, the parents the educators that don't know me will like point me to the black kid and I'm like, oh, no, I'm here for that one. That one's mine. You know, they're like, oh.
That's so
you know. And I think when I'm traveling with him, am I going to look like the help?
Yeah, exactly.
When I'm with this
And then you have to think about also how you look, being presentable. Yeah. Lord Jesus.
Yeah. What about male privilege?
Oh, I can go in.
Mansplaining.
Oh my, and I hate mansplainers, bruh. But yeah, tied to patriarchy.
Yeah.
Tied to, you know, just like the respect they get. I think watching the Barbie movie again, you know, our last season was very much Barbie era, very influenced by that. And how Ken, leaving the Barbie world, went into the real world and saw the amount of privilege that men had. And he was so enticed by that.
Yeah.
I think that was a great depiction of like male privilege.
100%.
You know, like you can just, anything goes, you're respected, you don't have to.
You can be arrogant and it's confident.
Yes. Absolutely.
You can be a dick and it's like, oh, he gets the job done.
Exactly. You know? On a father level, if you just hold your child, people are like, you're such a great dad.
I know. Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly.
You change nappies? Woo.
Ooh, yeah.
The bar is low.
So low. So low. Like I would consider being a male just for that privilege. So you don't have to show up really.
And also, even if you think about it on a health perspective, they were talking about hormones and like how men wake up with testosterone and it's pretty much on the same keen level.
Yes.
And women, we go through I think we have 1 week where it's like things are good.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time we're fighting some sort of struggle.
My sister was telling me that.
Ovulation or what is it, luteal phases and all. You can go deep into a child, read a biology book and you'll see.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, okay, so we are actually governed by our hormones. Like, men are like, oh, you guys are being difficult. It's because they never
have that.
My
sister explained, I don't know what it's called, guys. I'm very bad with terminology, but how men go through certain phases, like a cycle, like maybe a whole cycle, luteal, whatever, menstrual. They do it in a space of a day. So that's why they can be consistent. They can consistently wake up, go to the gym with no like, oh, do I feel like it? Or I'm so emotional. But women, like it's a different ball game. And then obviously the world is made easy for men. It's all, you know, constructed so men can thrive. And we're, as women, trying to fit into that.
Right.
It's a lot.
That's sad.
So sad. What about gender?
I think having said that about males, quite funny because sometimes there is a bit of gender privilege being a female.
Totally.
Like even if you think about Ukraine or Gaza, people are like, the women and the children.
Yeah,
yes. The men have to stay back and fight.
Yes.
It's like, I've never held a gun before. Yeah. I'm sure some guys are like,
I don't want to do it.
Yeah. So there is a bit of, obviously we're more protected, I guess. And this is in a patriarchal society with damsels in distress, but it has its privileges.
Even like on a date, who pays? I mean, a lot of men fight.
Yeah, or even if my tire punctures, it's okay if I look helpless. Yes. If it was a male, I'm sure you're like too even nervous. Like my husband finds it so hard to ask for help.
Yes.
Even in a store, he will like go, come back, and I was like, I didn't find it. I looked, I didn't find it. I'm like, did you ask?
Yeah.
It's like, asking, because like it's a thing. I can't look helpless, right?
Yeah. Whereas women are just like, can't find it.
Yeah, I find it. And I even have purposely sometimes acted dumb to get what I need because I'm just like, it's playing to this guy's ego.
Yes.
And they will need to get what we need and move on.
Yeah, it's so true.
So there's privilege in that.
Sometimes it's nice to be a woman.
Yeah.
Or like carrying stuff. Don't carry that. You're so gentle and fragile.
Oh, yes, please, my nails.
No, yeah, exactly.
I mean, carrying on for that, what about heterosexual privilege?
Oh, 1000%. Like you don't have to, going to the bathroom, you just don't even think twice. Like you're just like, oh, of course, like I go here and you go there. Or like just the way marriage is set up for the longest time. You know, a lot of people are not still to this day able to be married or together because of laws and restrictions. I mean, we come from a country where it's illegal.
Yeah.
Which is like wild.
Illegal. Like proper.
Yeah.
And there's a place like Uganda where they're mandating that you can just do whatever you want. If you're someone who's not heterosexual, we can just beat you up.
Yeah.
And it's like in this world, in 2023, 2024, we're still arguing over this. Like, what does my love life have to do with anybody else?
Yeah. So definitely, I think there's privilege in just being able to
We've heard stories of people making cakes for weddings and not realizing it's like a gay couple or something. And then once they do, like, in the South, like in America, and once they do, they don't want to put like two males on the, the topper.
So they refuse.
So, or refuse service. And you're like, why?
How is it affecting you?
It's the exact same cake you're making. How is it affecting you? I'm paying you.
Yeah, how is it affecting you? Anyway, there's
definitely privilege in that space.
Tying on to that is cisgender. I think I mentioned it with the toilet thing.
Yeah. Or even like, how does it feel to be comfortable knowing you are who you are?
Yeah.
And then someone who doesn't, we need to allow space for that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how it would feel to think, okay, I'm born female, but I don't feel.
Yeah.
And then how do I now operate?
And then it all filters in from a young age, right? Like how they define you when you're born, right? Like you have a baby, healthy baby boy.
You wear pink for the rest of your life. And
toys, you get toy cars, and it's just like really all society is molded in this like male, female, and this is who you are, and anything in between is like, oh, we don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Kind of
scenario. I mean, moving off that, and I mean, we touched a bit about this with Zimbabwe, but what about socioeconomic privilege?
Hey.
Like shmoney.
I mean, money really governs the world, and then we can go in. And we've talked about, obviously, classism in our previous episodes, and Zimbabwe thrives off this. And it's the level of respect some people get just because you look like you are well-to-do, so you deserve more respect.
Yeah.
Which is, if anyone I was watching Succession on the plane. I think every day I've been mentioning this. Watching Succession, and you're seeing these hyper-privileged people. And I'm like, why the hell do they deserve any respect from anybody? Like, they have no conscience. They're just so selfish and, but the world we live in will give them many, many chances to be misogynists and whatnot because of their socioeconomic standing as compared to someone who isn't.
Well, they also treat you like you're disposable, right?
Yes.
Because in some ways, to them,
you are. Yeah, I can buy you.
But do you think opposite thinking, especially like now in terms of inheritance and things like that, like obviously we're always thinking about how to improve each generation, and generational wealth is a thing.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about that as well.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a way to operate when you are more well-to-do financially? Like, without, how do you help that?
I think be a human, have a heart. I don't know.
Humble yourself. Maybe they need to go kumusha as well once in a while.
Yeah.
Because you did speak about that. And that probably, now I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, those were probably humbling experiences.
Yes.
You get back home and you're switching on that light. Like,
you're like,
actually,
wow.
I'm glad I have electricity.
Exactly. And I think even like you can teach people to be good humans, bruh.
Yeah.
Like because I think assholes are taught or nurtured.
100%.
So just teach people to have some level of consideration, tying into pet peeves about not making, raising your child to be like, you can't move around with I'm better than you because XYZ. It's like respect for people and understanding of where people come from. Doesn't mean you have to like everyone. Doesn't mean you have to sit and take everything from everyone, but at least not be a dickhead.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Succession has really,
has
really got you in your feels.
Triggered. What about being able-bodied?
Ooh.
The privilege of being able-bodied.
I am so ashamed to admit that I never thought about this until I had a child.
Yeah.
Because then I had to use a pram. And when you use a pram, you obviously use the same services that someone in a wheelchair, for example, would have to use.
Yeah.
And now going to the shopping mall is a whole different experience.
Yes.
I'm like, where's the nearest lift? Where, like, even the way I map the shopping mall is now different. And I find myself thinking, why aren't there enough lifts?
Yeah.
Or escalators?
Yeah.
Or there's some place I can't go. Even the cinema, I've never been to the cinema using an elevator, like at my local cinema. And they're like, it's all the way in the back, some corner there. And you're like, wow.
So true. And isn't it funny that able-bodied people, when there's disabled parking, sometimes you're like, there's so much disabled parking, man. Like, it's annoying, especially when you can't find parking, which is such an able-bodied thing to be like, oh,
parking there?
Yes, exactly.
That's even worse.
Exactly. So that, and then, you're just assuming like, oh, they can make do, but like really they can't. And I think for me, my father-in-law, his, seeing how he's grappled, like, I think that's also shown me, like, we really don't
like health as wealth. Yeah.
Think about these things.
But having said that, do you think it can also be used opposite, like to get ahead? Like, say, like 100%. Oscar Pistorius is actually getting out of jail. Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, his parole is like up. 10 years is already it's been 10 years, girl.
No way.
Yeah, he's up for parole. And in South Africa, it will be granted. Like, let's not even.
Oh my gosh. And also he's a white Afrikaner. Yeah. That sounds racist, but like, I can't be racist because, in this context specifically.
Yeah, but.
Wow.
So, I mean, but I don't know. I mean, they're facing so many different things that I think it's okay to sometimes play up that card if you need to.
For sure.
Because in most spaces, you're othered.
Yes.
When you're not able-bodied.
Definitely.
And then I hate the assumption sometimes when you're disabled, physically especially, that you are also mentally disabled.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Especially in our community. You're not to be seen.
You're not to be
away. Tucked away.
Yeah.
Did you pray enough? Because if you hadn't prayed, that's why he or she turned out this way. So it's like, it's almost like a death sentence in a space like Zimbabwe's.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know, even schools.
Yes. Yeah.
I think there was one, Daniko or something. There
was
the one school I know. But what? So the whole of Zimbabwe goes to this one school?
Yeah, it's wild. So true. I must say, in our family, extended family, we have a relative who was wheelchair ridden, but was always there at the family gathering.
Oh,
yes. Really impressive.
I love that energy.
Always there. So that's pretty dope. I did the able-bodied.
What about religion? The privilege of.
And we're seeing the issues of feeling privileged in the Gaza, conflict.
Yeah.
Because it's like one person feels they're right. And so I think there's a privilege to being Christian.
Yeah.
I feel like there is, a privilege to being Jewish. Because obviously being very conscious, they went through a lot. Like, with Holocaust and all this. But there's a handicap to being like Muslim or, because you're
especially if
perceived.
people don't understand
your religion.
Like 9/11 did not help Muslims at all. Because now Americans and people who drive that type of media just think, the worst at airports.
Exactly. So you see the distinction, right? And especially because their religion is quite visible for women, having to wear burqas and, so then it's quite in your face. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the Czech Republic, they banned the wearing of burqas.
And in France as well, I think.
Something. And I was like, so what now? Like, how?
Yeah.
How? Like, how does that affect you?
Yeah.
But just so you don't intimidate or like, kind
and the assumption that Christians have that Muslims, especially when it comes to women, is tied to oppression.
Yes.
It's like, well, there's some women who love their religion. It's not tied to oppression at all. The same way Christians aren't. Exactly. But it's like...
Yeah. Definitely.
Or if you're atheist and you don't believe in anything, and now people are like, let's pray. Like, to who, my guy?
Should I send them a Bible verse?
Yeah, like, stop being... And I've noticed, I don't know if you have the same thing with Tom, I've noticed a lot with myself.
Yeah.
When it comes to Zimbabwe especially,
everyone's
I just
praying.
tell him, put up with it. He doesn't have a right to say, oh, no, I don't want to just sit there like a chump.
Yeah.
Or I'll step outside out of respect to you.
Yes.
And if you think about it on like a, on a basic level, he is meant to say, look, this is not... Because why would he stay in the room and pretend to appease you?
Yeah.
And yet you don't want to do the opposite, where it's like, okay, let's not pray because it makes him uncomfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
And Zimbabweans, they're like, you don't go to church.
Yeah, no, they don't understand that. They just like, it's like I don't eat meat. Okay, but you eat chicken.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, remove the meat, guy. You have the gravy. Yeah. It's like, that's not how it works.
I remember when I had my vegan era and I'd be like, oh, I'm vegan. What? And I don't eat meat. And, so we'll make chicken. And I'm like, or we'll make eggs. I'm like,
well, then that actually shows that's privilege in itself, right?
Exactly.
Where you can just operate without any of these tolerances to food.
Yes, that's true.
And people respect that and don't have to consider you.
Yeah, for sure.
But Zimbabweans.
Someone needs to do a movie like with just Zimbos and how left field.
Yeah.
They can go. Yeah. There's so many WTF moments like being a Zimbabwean. You're just like, and you have to roll the punch. You can't fight it.
The food one always cracks me up because it's like, no, don't just take the meat out. Like the meat cooked in this gravy. Like,
they're like, okay. What about passport privilege? Ooh. And I feel like you can talk on this because you've seen the shift.
I have seen the shift on my own personal journey. Obviously, being Zimbabwean, when I came to Australia, then becoming an Australian citizen and traveling under both passports. It's literally day and night.
Yeah.
I have never thought about anything when I'm on my Australian one. I'm just like, sometimes I probably think if someone was going to ask me for a visa, I'd probably rock up without one and go, oh, oops, because I forgot all about it.
Yeah.
I think when you go to Brazil or something, you have to apply for a visa before, even as an Australian. So you have to get like yellow fever and all these things.
Okay.
But that's the only place. Everywhere else has been like, just
in
walk on in.
Yeah.
You want to come see our country? Just walk on in.
On the Converse.
And then Zimbabwe is the utter opposite of that.
Like when I was applying for my visa here, and I think I also had a level of privilege, A, because of where I now live.
Yeah.
And B, because of who I'm married to. But like, for instance, his visa that he applied in solidarity with me, he went the same route as me. Gotta love Tom. In solidarity, he went the same route with me for the application.
Yeah.
And his visa came out before mine.
They're probably thinking, child, didn't you read the fine print?
Exactly.
You're fine.
It was quick, fast. Like literally, we applied the same information, same time, sent the same time. His came out maybe 2-3 weeks prior to mine.
Yep.
And for me, it was like, I think they were like, girl, just remember which passport you hold.
Just sweat it out a little bit.
A little bit longer. Just a little.
And if you think about opportunities missed.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, it's like, I couldn't get a visa.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, then next person. If it's for a job or whatever, they're not going to wait. If it's something that needs to be done, they're not going to wait around for you.
And even then, I had privilege of having traveled before. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Because then, I mean, part of the visa application is like places you've like proof of travel, proof of visa. I don't know how many million stamps I was just putting in the thing
to show
that I actually have seen parts of the world and photos too, right? Like, like,
it's like literally someone has to really, you show them your whole life.
Where if someone's never had that, you're already step back.
I remember when I was applying for my cousin to come, and obviously this was when I just given birth and I wanted support. And I remember it was like, okay, now we've never traveled anywhere. And I had to play the my mom is dead card. Like, you know, I had to be like, I need support card, mental health card, you know, like, and I'm sure the person reading this was like, this is a risk. And even then, they only gave them a single entry 3 months, so the bare minimum, like, we're chancing it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
and
crazy.
and even then, they first denied it before, as you know. So it's like, after all that, if you've never been anywhere, when are you going to get the opportunity to go anywhere if you can't?
And here's the kicker, though, is I know Zimbabweans that are way more traveled than people I've met in the so-called first world country.
Yeah.
And we love to travel. It's not for lack of. I think obviously because of circumstances, we are just more. But even for pleasure and leisure, we like to travel or we're curious. And I'm like, we still manage to do it holding the green bomba. Kudos
We
to
make
us.
it work.
Make it work.
So simple.
Willing to suffer for the.
I mean, carrying on from that, obviously, birthplace then becomes a privilege.
Yeah.
Something you don't even decide.
Yes.
Like your parents just wham-bammed somewhere and your mom was like,
Firstly, wham bam.
I'll just give birth here. And then that decides the rest of your life.
Yeah.
People do those travel passport, tourism.
Yes.
What is it? Tourism, like pregnancies.
Yes.
Where they go to countries when they know if I give birth in this country, my child will be a citizen.
Yeah.
You know, then there's some places like Switzerland, I think, where it doesn't matter if you're born here.
You'll never be.
Or
Just like
you're
also the
of-
UAE.
Yeah, yeah. So isn't that just crazy?
Yeah, it's insane because you don't choose. That's why I'm saying it's what luck of the draw.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you're born, like you don't choose who your family is.
Yeah.
Even if you dial it down very, very on a micro level to Zim, you don't choose if you're born north of Samora or south of Samora. Like you weren't like birth me here.
Yeah.
That's just
Better
how it was.
schools and
Yeah,
all
exactly.
that.
So definitely a lot of privilege there. So, Shakauma. What about location privilege?
I guess
what
that
do you mean
is
by
the
that?
same as like north or south.
Yeah.
Or like being born in Harare as opposed to a smaller town.
Yeah. Also where you live, like
Access.
now, like you're living here in Melbourne
Yeah.
versus living, I don't know, somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, the
middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Regional areas, obviously getting less access or more expensive stuff because
Yes.
it's taken so much to get it there.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
It's crazy.
So much
It's like every
privilege.
decision we actually think about is like, okay,
Privilege.
but how are you
related.
gonna live with this? Do you go around apologizing? What are you gonna do?
Yeah, no, you can't.
Geographical is the same.
Yes.
I mean, there's no reason why we were born in Southern Africa as opposed to like South Sudan in the civil war. You know, like
Exactly. And that's a good point to remember because I remember so many times in my life I was like, why was I born Zimbabwean from this little country with all these issues and this freaking passport and you can go on, but it's also a good reminder that others have it worse and they
Much
also
worse.
didn't even choose. So yeah,
I can't imagine fleeing from my country,
literally from war.
having to. Like, I think the most, for me, modern day, seeing that happen was obviously Ukraine.
Yes,
That was a wake-up call for me because I'd never really seen, like,
people fleeing.
people fleeing. And people talk of it, but I think maybe the documentation, obviously, of Ukraine was on a much different scale to other countries, which is another situation in itself.
Yes.
But seeing, like, all these people just uprooted and Russia's coming. And it's like,
Imagine.
can you imagine?
And now
You're
people are
sleeping,
moving
then
back.
next day.
I'm like, yo.
People are moving back?
Moving back home. They're like, we're done with y'all.
Yeah,
And being like discriminated against. So yeah. Okay. What about the privilege of non-immigration?
Ooh,
Tell us.
girl.
Do we even need to go into I feel like we don't want
As someone who's obviously not celebrating Christmas anywhere near my family, like imagine that.
Yeah.
Just dad is down the road and
It's
you
wild to
know?
me to think you can exist in a world where your siblings, your parents, you live in the same
your friends,
vicinity,
your workmates,
and that's your life.
everything.
It does not exist. My brain cannot cognitively
When you
put
travel
it together.
somewhere, it's for traveling for pleasure
Yes.
or business, not
Yes.
because that's your home away from home.
That's wild.
Your home is your home.
Yeah.
Imagine like us having grown up in Zim.
Yeah.
gone to with the schools you went to, and then stayed there
for university,
work, our family.
I feel like I'd be a different person.
You would be.
Even just hearing that, I'm like, I don't think I'd recognize myself.
Because how would you operate?
Yeah.
You wouldn't even think.
Because our parents, when they grew up, like they were quick, fast to return back to Zim.
Oh, yeah.
Like they were like...
They went outside for education.
Like
if the scholarships or whatever they were given, a lot of them were on scholarships, had been granted within the homeland, they would have just, if it wasn't like, oh, come to Oxford or come to whatever, they would have just stayed.
Yeah.
And then they still did stay. They graduated and packed up and moved back.
Because I think my parents like graduated university and immediately like moved back, bought a house, got married.
Yeah.
I was just like...
And nothing irks me more than when our parents don't understand that it's different for us.
Yes.
Because it's like, no, I don't have to balance always thinking, or like when you wake up, there's 1,000 calls on your phone and you're like, if I was just home, I'll just pop on over.
Yes, that's true.
Like it's completely different ball game. Or when you have to have a holiday away from your holiday, because when you go home for 2 weeks,
you're
it's just
so
stress.
Working, slaving. Oh, we're going to have a barbecue for you, but you're slaving.
Give us that money you're making in Australia or Czech Republic. And you're like...
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. What about like transportation? Like this is you talked about going kumusha and like not having access, obviously, to a car.
Yes. Or like, the comfort of that. Even for example, my grandma, who's passed away now, she lived in rural Zimbabwe and she was ill. And they had to get a car to transport her from the village to the city when she passed away. But just that having to mission to get that, or even things like ambulance, like in Zim, Gary, I've forgotten his surname, the Zimbabwean artist who passed, Mapanzura, who passed away. He couldn't get to a hospital in time. He could have survived, but because of that lack of access to medical transportation, lost his life. That I think that's a clear
such a young age,
black and white of like access to how can it can be make such a major difference. And on the converse, I've seen it save the life of my father-in-law because he was able to get immediate access to an ambulance and get immediately served attended to in the hospital and operated on.
Yeah. Or even I remember when we were, this is even when we were at Shorora for your hairdresser. Yes. And she's like, oh, I have to leave here by this time because if I don't go.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, obviously certain areas have more public transport than other areas. And we have to be cognizant of that. Like, oh, wow. Okay, we actually have to get you home.
Yeah. Or at least drop you
somewhere. Yeah. Whereas some people would never think that. You just jump in your car and go where you need to go. Or you do have public transport and you can just get around. Like, I remember my au pair right now, she's always complaining about how Australia's public transport sucks.
Yeah.
But she's compared to Europe. Yeah. Where it's like, no, it's on a
people
different
actually
level.
Look at you like, oh, you have a car.
On time.
Yeah. In Europe, Czech Republic, wherever, they're like, oh, you have a car. Like, it's actually like not a necessity because of that. But like, definitely.
Yeah.
So, is this thing be deep? I like this one because I think I saw a TikTok recently talking about it.
Okay.
Beauty.
And the pretty privilege.
I saw a TikTok about use your pretty privilege. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think I talked about it. We were talking about males, female, and I said sometimes I've had to like flutter the eyes,
flick the hair.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I've never really had to use it when it's in amongst. Like it's always with males, I suppose. Yeah. I've never had to. I don't think it really works with. I don't know with other females.
Because women are haters. Women are haters. Women's even. Women are haters.
Yeah, we are. We'll be like, you think you're cute.
Yeah, exactly.
But like with men, sometimes you have to tap into it, man.
Confession.
Yeah, story time. You have to because it's like to your disposal. Like it's like an arsenal, But having said that, it's annoying when you see someone else who's prettier.
Yeah.
Or like it ties in or white privilege or blonde Barbie girl type.
There's always like, someone who's more privileged in that. But I think also beauty privilege could tie into what we're talking about, being presentable.
Oh, yeah.
So, and how you present yourself, how you look compared to someone else can create opportunities for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know you can, like, pretty privilege, literally, people have careers off that.
Yeah, of course.
But
then people be like, oh, she must have slept with the boss.
Yes, but like beyond that, I think even just being able to conduct yourself in a certain way, you can do your makeup, you can look clean and put together, like that, people are like, okay, you deserve this compared to this person.
Or treat you this way.
Yes. Exactly.
You know, and then there's like labels as well, like even in our dressing, and obviously say this as a stylist, but like the way we dress, people would judge.
Yeah.
Oh, she wears those labels, she must be this person.
Yeah.
Like if I come in here stepping up in a chinchilla, mink coat or whatever, y'all will be like, she's that type of person.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, definitely.
And it's like...
It's absolutely a lie, the whole notion of don't judge a book by its cover when it comes to people. I think we want people to judge us for who we are.
Yeah.
But I 1000% think it's not possible.
No.
Especially if you're of a certain hue.
Yeah. Why do you think though?
Because what we talked about is, it's like, oh, can I trust you? There's the element of like trust and whatever. And I think it's a form of an icebreaker.
Yeah.
It kind of, and I say this not to say that you must all be about image and how you do that. I say this, like, set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
By being a bit more cognizant of how you present yourself.
Like playing the game.
Because then you have a little less work to do in terms of breaking certain barriers. Which is sad, but it's the reality of the world we live in.
And isn't it crazy that that's from a Western view as well? Yeah. Like I remember when I was a kid, if my mom ever dressed in traditional African wear, I'd be like, we are not going anywhere with you looking like that. Then you get pride in your own...
As you grow older,
like, what? That's my identity.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You know.
For sure.
So it's such a weird thing because, like, from whose gaze is that
this coming from?
Okay.
Definitely.
What do you think about age?
Ish. Well, for example, the music industry, the younger you are, the like more successful you'll be. The music industry is willing to put money behind you and say, okay, you're worth funding.
Yeah.
And if you're older, ooh, no one's gonna want to buy albums from you. I'm like, how sway?
Yeah.
Like maybe I have more life to tell in my music. So
yeah, that's such a weird one as well, because that one can work both ways. Because I think in Zim, our parents did have the privilege that they were born in that certain era of, you know, the renaissance of Zim, Black empowerment, and then like there were loans and all these things they were given. And then now they're like, buy a house. You're like,
from what? With what money?
You know,
with what loan?
I have the handicap of being born now after like financial crisis, or even if you put it in a Western way, like a lot of people would say like my rent is more than what my parents' mortgage was, and then they'll be like, buy a house, because in the 70s or 60s
they could,
you know, they could, for like much less than what we're buying houses for now. So it's like it works both ways. It can be an aging thing, but it can also be like you're lucky you were born in that era where you did have, like, I think a friend of the podcast, Christine, shout out to Christine, she said to me, we're discussing how she was like, we're the first generation, I think, that's not going to be more successful materialistic wise than our parents. Yeah. Because it was always like from the 50s, the 60s, everyone's improving.
We got the shitty end of the stick, to be
we
quite
peaked
frank.
And our parents peaked, and then now we're not going to surpass
dipping.
them.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say too, in terms of age, I think of my mom at the time she got married. She said it was not possible for her to get a loan from the bank because she was a woman. And like now it's like, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Or like, for example, before women couldn't vote, and now we can vote. So there's also that kind of privilege with age and time, I guess. Over time, things have changed. So, yeah.
I mean, there's so many types. You can sit here all day and not at all out.
Every
but
day.
How do we acknowledge our own privilege? So you're in this space, someone's pointed out something to you, that's just because you're heterosexual, or that's because you're whatever. How do you acknowledge and move with that?
With knowing your privilege?
Knowing your privilege, or maybe giving a space for those without that specific privilege.
Yeah, I think it ties into our episode on allyship, which is just listen and be more supportive. And don't come with the energy of all lives matter. We spoke about this before. Don't come with that, you know? I think it's also saying it's okay to acknowledge your privilege because you're also disadvantaged in some aspects.
Yeah. We're not all ticking all the boxes.
Yes. And it's okay to acknowledge it and maybe try use your privilege for good to help
your
someone.
Voice. Yeah.
Have it a little bit better and to support someone.
Consideration.
Because I think the world tries to sell us this notion of like, for me to succeed, someone needs to suffer. But I'm like, imagine how progressive the world gets if we all uplift each other. Like everyone's life can get a little bit better. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's not gonna kill you.
And you can acknowledge your privilege.
Yes,
it's okay too.
Absolutely.
It's what you do after you've acknowledged it that matters.
Exactly.
Because the acknowledgement is obvious, my guy. Like a white male, we don't have to be asking you, do you feel it or not? We know.
Yeah.
But like, then what?
And I think it's a stigma, I guess, people feel like, because immediately, for example, using the Kardashians, who I love to watch, which is controversial and my guilty pleasure. We were kind of happy to watch them when they started off because they were successful, but not too successful, right?
Yeah.
But now, for example,
they're like D-lists, so people sometimes say, yeah.
But now, I mean, people on them about, for example, Kim's Christmas decorations, like the amount of money they spend and all that kind of thing. So people typically try to tear down people who have really visible privilege.
Yeah. Even flying private jets is the thing they always get into trouble for.
Exactly. So I think that's why it's so hard to admit your privilege, but then also use your platform. Like Kim uses it for her legal stuff or whatever. Whether or not people buy into it, that's your own, whatever. I don't even think I buy into it, to be fair. But at least she's trying to do something. It's better than just being privileged and be like, and actually Zoom celebs are terrible for this. They'll be like, ooh, I'm so privileged. I have this. How's it down there, suckers?
Yeah. Look at what I have.
Look at what I have. At least she's even trying to be like, let me get you out of jail. I mean, you get what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Because then you'd hope in her scenario she would have a good team behind her. So she's the face, but there's people who are actually properly looking, okay, is this person worthy of exonerating? Whereas in the Zim situation, it's like, okay, who's this helping? You showing off your Birkin.
Yeah, no, but it's so unrelatable. We need Zim celebs do better. Do better. So as I already brought up, we spoke on allyship. So how do we hold space for those not? Oh, you already said it.
I already answered that.
I think we already answered that.
Yeah.
To be fair, but yeah, it's such a great topic. I think because we don't think about it. It's nice to talk about we suffer, but it's also good to be like, I also have some benefits and, and I think we are quite open about our privilege in certain aspects, Yeah,
I think when we dropped that classism episode, people were like, okay, these girls are not hiding behind,
Yeah.
It's sad that the world operates like that. But we have to take a moment to acknowledge that even to do this podcast,
100%. There was privilege tied to it. Financial privilege, travel privilege.
Yeah.
All sorts.
Access.
Because
that's why we also always talk about even on YouTube, making sure we always have our episodes up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because we know it's very easily accessible for our Zimbabwean listeners.
Not everyone can.
Whereas Spotify, hey, having a credit card. So you're already to even have the app.
Yes.
For a while it wasn't available in South Africa, I remember, right?
100%. For a long time, actually.
So that's why people just go with Apple Music perhaps as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. We hope you enjoyed this topic. Us, we can delve forever.
Oh, girl.
But yeah, send us your comments, your thoughts. Are there other privileges we didn't even touch on? That we didn't? Maybe hair privilege. I mean, we can go on. It's everywhere.
Yeah, girl.
It's everywhere. But yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, so good to have you, Rimbi. This has been crazy recording with you across. I'm so used to it being like a screen.
Definitely.
And now to just have you here. It's pinch me moments. I'm loving it.
Thank you for listening and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Bye, guys.
Toodles.